instant Browns classic.
Hey, whatever it. Hey, that's what this game's about. Let's go! Let's go!
The Cleveland Browns are America's team.
And it's all over! The Browns are winners today!
Good evening, everybody out there, and how appropriate the America's team comment in this episode. Welcome in to another episode of the Barking Brown Show. I'm Jacob. That's Mr. Casey Kinnaman. We're brought to you, as always, by our friends over at Homage Apparel. I got the classic brownie tonight, the Techno Bowl. I got to get the Techno Bowl, man. I got to get that shirt. It's a great shirt. Go check out our friends.
Yeah, the Clay Matthews and the Webster Slaughter. I got the Webster Slaughter, so you should go with the Clay Matthews.
I should go get the Clay. Okay, yeah, I can do that. Go check them out over at Homage Apparel. If you're new to the YouTube channel, welcome. We appreciate you being here. Subscribe, thumbs up, helps us out a ton. If we reach that magical 400 subs by Tuesday, I'll do the cinnamon challenge for all of you people out there. So hit sub and tell your enemies to hit sub too. How are you?
I'm doing good, dude. You ain't gonna do all that. I'm taking it you've done this before, right? Because it's not awesome.
Yeah, no, I've done it before. Yeah,
I've done it once, and it won't be a number two. I'm not doing it again.
I breathe. So when I did it the first time, I breathed in a little bit as I was doing it. It immediately went down my throat.
Oh,
yeah, it was rough.
Yeah, wouldn't recommend it. Anyone out there, don't be dumb like Jacob. Although we do need your follows, and we need people to subscribe. So I'm all for getting 400 by Tuesday, but what cost, my man?
Sometimes it's fun to do the stupid shit. You're like, why did I do that? But it was fun. So,
I would rather do something physically painful.
Yeah, I've got some ideas for that too. I think I still need to get shot by paintballs. I think actually I still owe somebody that.
I would do a stun gun. I would do a paintball.
I've been tased, so it's not. It's nothing too crazy. Anyway, we're starting a new series tonight. We're going to go through all 2024 Browns opponents in order. So we'll start with the Dallas Cowboys, bring on a guest here in just a second, and we're going to work our way through it. If you missed any of the draft pick film review series, they're on the YouTube channel. There's a section cut out for that, as well as the position review series that we're working our way through on Tuesdays.
So basically, look, we knew who we were lining up against. We know it's a late afternoon game, week 1 against Dallas Cowboys. You know, they're probably the most talked about team, you know, and just based on their popularity, you see them on ESPN, all the major shows. But we want to do a deeper dive, right?
Yeah.
And we're going to bring on a guest with each of these teams. We might have the best possible guest lined up that could talk Cowboys and Browns on planet Earth.
Yeah.
It just so happens he's a friend of ours. But he's much more than that. He is a father. He's a husband. He is a meat enthusiast. He writes so many websites. I'm not even going to try. Nope. He is the site editor for Dog Pound Daily, and he writes for Dallas Cowboys Fan Nation from Sports Illustrated. Mr. Randy Gurzi.
Woo!
What's up, guys?
You got that?
Randy?
He's got that sweet serenade to his voice.
Oh man, yeah, that was a great intro, by the way. So I feel like I have to actually live up to it now. At least pretend like I know what I'm talking about. So
that's what I'm talking about. Well,
yeah, we'll see if we can fudge our way through this.
Well, we're talking about the Dallas Cowboys, a team that finished 12-5 last year, won the NFC East, got sent home packing by Green Bay. Always intend your puns. And where are they at now? Like, what's going on in 2024 with Dallas? Like, when you think of Dallas, obviously you get the images of Jerry Jones and Dak and CeeDee Lamb and Micah Parsons. That's what I'd say everyone kind of knows about. But we're going to go deeper, right? So I think if we're going to start with what this iteration looks like, we're going to start on the defensive side of the ball. And when I was going over the people that you lost a ton of people, man. It seems like Dan Quinn, who's a big loss in my opinion, going to the Commanders, took like 4 players to the Commanders. 3 defensive linemen, your center, you know what I mean? So walk me through this. What needs to happen with this new defense with Mike Zimmer stepping up, and who's going to replace all these players?
Yeah, and Quinn took a couple of assistant coaches as well, which was big. The one that they kept was Al Harris, which is fantastic because he's one of the top defensive back coaches in the NFL. He's done a great job with Trevon Diggs and Deron Bland. But the one area, and so don't get me wrong, because I'm not trying to bash on Dan Quinn, but he had a glaring weakness in his defense that was just he could get absolutely exposed against the run. And if you look at him throughout his history, it's the Kyle Shanahan-based teams or teams that have that similar style. Whether it's San Francisco with Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay with the Rams, or Matt LaFleur with the Packers. Those are the teams that have been knocking them out of the playoffs like crazy. And Dan Quinn just cannot figure out their run games. So the first thing that you need from Mike Zimmer is figure out how in the world do you slow down these opposing teams. The one thing that's going to kind of, in my opinion, make or break their defense. Yes, their defense is still going to be good. You're going to have Michael Parsons off the edge. You're going to have Trevon Diggs, Deron Bland. But what they need to get where they want to go in January is they need to be able to shut down the run. And that's going to fall on Maisie Smith, that the defensive tackle. I don't understand what Dan Quinn did with him last year. Big 337-pound defensive tackle. He had him drop a bunch of weight, move to a 3-tech. I think they had 47 3-techs on their defense last year. Not one knew how to rush the passer. So I don't understand what the plan was. But they had Jonathan Hankins was their only nose tackle, and they let him go in the offseason. I think he signed with Seattle. Right now, Maisie Smith is their only real option. Their backup's Justin Rogers, who was a 7th rounder. That defense, what Mike Zimmer's got to do is figure out how in the world do we stop the run. A lot of times I think, yes, it's a pass-happy league, and I'm one of the first people that's going to tell you that. And you have to be able to get after the passer. You have to be able to stop. He can do that, but at the same time, you get in the playoffs. Jordan Love was on Michael Parsons' podcast and said, "You got a linebacker or a defensive back playing linebacker, we could just power through you." So Jordan Love didn't really have to do anything; just hand the ball off and watch his team run all over the field on them.
Well, let's start up front. So you lost Neville Gallimore, you lost Jonathan Hankins, you lose Dante Fowler. Who are some names besides Maisie Smith that we should expect to see step up in those areas?
And honestly, I think the biggest loss is one you didn't even mention was Dorrance Armstrong.
Yep.
He had 16 sacks over the last 2 years. That guy was just, very, very underrated, really good. To run really good against the pass. But one thing that Dallas does very well, and they don't get enough credit for, is draft. They are really, really good in the draft. And if you look at the way they've been drafting, yeah, they lost. They're losing these guys, but they were planning for it for the most part. You have Sam Williams ready to come in, who's been playing well whenever he's got the opportunity. A 260-pounder that can run a 4.4. They actually had him playing gunner on special teams. I mean, you don't see that very often. That's
Let me ask a question about him, because he was a guy coming out of Ole Miss that had the athletic profile of a stud, but there was questions off field. Has there been anything since he's been in Dallas that lend any credence to those things, were the noise surrounding him coming out of Ole Miss?
I believe he had some kind of a traffic violation or something. It wasn't anything major, but I feel like there was something that happened during his rookie year, but it wasn't. Nothing ever came of it. Outside of that, the only noise that I've really heard from him is, when he took to Twitter and kind of complained about his snap count. He wanted to be on the field more, which I don't blame him, because he was on the field. He had, I think, 4 sacks as a rookie, 4.5 last year. But that's what Dallas has done is, they kind of have those guys that are ready to come through. You had Maisie Smith, who's going to take over for Jonathan Hankins. You have Sam Williams, who's going to kind of take over for that rotational pass rusher that Dorrance Armstrong and Dante Fowler Jr. were. So I think they've done a good job there. Defensively, I think they're going to be okay. Again, it's just all about whether or not they can stop the run. And they did a good job, in my opinion, of not completely fixing the linebacker core, but getting Eric Kendricks was huge. You finally have somebody that can be, that middle linebacker and kind of
be on the field.
Yeah.
Because with Van Der Esch, I think that's what you're looking for, is someone to be on the field.
Yeah, you got exactly. And Van Der Esch was really good, but again, if you're not available, it doesn't really matter. Damone Clark is good, but I think he had a little too much on him when Van Der Esch went down. So I think having Kendricks in there as that veteran leader, then you got DeMarvin Overshown and Maurice Liafu, who I think he's been turning a lot of heads in camp, the rookie from Notre Dame. So they've kind of prepared themselves for this and tried to continue to bring people in. Marshawn Nealon's another one, their second round pick this year, that they kind of feel like can help them with defensive end rotation. So
they were able to sign Jordan Lewis, so you have your slot cornerback, right?
Yeah, Jordan Lewis. He was getting courted by Dan Quinn, and Quinn was coming in wanting to sign him there, but Lewis did. He ended up staying with us, which it's been a good fit for him. He's another guy that you don't really think of a lot because he just the slot corners don't get a lot of turnovers really. That they're stop the guy, and he does a really good job of it. He's gotten several sacks in his career too. He's off the blitz, but for the most part, you don't. He did play. He come back from an injury, and last year he played fantastic down the stretch. So I think keeping him was huge for them.
So is Diggs? Oh, sorry, Jacob. Go ahead.
No, I just had a question. Nobody's really talking about this move in the back end of the safety, but what can you tell me about some weird name? It's Sheldrick Red. Oh, I'm just shit. I didn't even realize he was on Dallas's roster, and I pulled up the depth chart to make sure I remembered where they were, and I'm like, holy shit, he's still in the NFL. So
he is. I think he was on the practice squad all year. I don't think he ever got called up to the active roster last year, but he was there last year as well. So
I think a guy that is actually a safety that kind of, I know that Browns fans really kind of pushed for him a couple years ago, but what's Malik Hooker been like? Like, does he look like the guy that he did coming out of Ohio State, or is he just kind of a guy back there?
He's not the guy that we saw at Ohio State. He's still really good. He, for years, the big knock that I had on Dallas, especially under Rod Marinelli and as a defense coordinator, as a head coach, is like they just acted like safeties didn't matter. You can plug and play anybody in there. But Malik Hooker, he's been really good. This last year, he was 14th ranked. I'm pulling up PFF here and looking at it, but he was the 14th ranked safety in the NFL last year. They actually ranked high on run defense, which kind of shocks me.
We're losing you.
Yeah, we lost your audio, brother.
He was making excellent points too.
I could tell too.
Like, you know what I mean? He was just
getting very fired up about it. No, I still don't have you. Uh-oh. All right.
Lost them all together. I'll say this too, because Malik Hooker, obviously all the talent in the world comes out of Ohio State, goes to Indianapolis, and pretty much had a decent start and then just kind of disappointed. And he's had a career resurgence since he's gotten to Dallas, made himself a viable option. And he's definitely someone that Browns fans were clamoring for when he would become – it was the name. It was the name Hooker associated with Ohio State, so they were all in. Definitely a career resurgence in Dallas.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I don't know how far you got cut off there, but really what I was saying is just Malik Hooker. He's not that same guy that we saw at Ohio State, but he's really solidified that back end and is, does a good job of keeping the deep ball from beating them, which was a big kryptonite for them for years.
Well, let's stay in the back end. What's Diggs' timeline?
They're believing he can be ready early in the season. I think he can be ready by week 1. He did get injured in week 3, so it was pretty early in the year that he tore the ACL. But he seems to be pretty confident that he's going to be out there, which is part of the reason they didn't try to re-sign Gilmore.
Yeah.
They're pretty confident that Diggs will be out there early.
Okay, and Deron Bland, like if you're an outsider, all you're seeing is the highlights and this kid's 9 interceptions, 5 touchdowns. But from everything I'm hearing from actual Cowboys fans, it was like feast or famine. There was a ton of plays he didn't make for all the ones that he did.
Yeah, and you heard the same thing with Trevon Diggs early in his career. And I think that's going to be kind of the case with a lot of these guys who have that confidence. And, that goes back to Al Harris, their defensive back coach. Mm-hmm. He wants that aggressive corner. He wants that guy that's going to take a chance. He doesn't really he knows that you don't want to give up that big touchdown, but at the same time, he knows the swing it can get you if you make that play. We saw it last year if you guys watched any Dallas games where it would just be Deron Bland, you throw it near him, and he took it to the house, and all of a sudden the whole game could change. Kind of happened for the Browns when Greg Newsome picked off Lamar Jackson against the Ravens. You can see when that big play happens, what it brings to you. I think that's where that comes from. It's just that aggressive style. They're going to go after the ball, and it goes back to their safeties. They believe in their safeties. They believe the safeties are going to make the play if the corners don't. And they're really, really good at getting safeties. You got, Hooker's doing a really good job. Donovan Wilson was a 6th-round pick that plays really well. Even Marquise Bell and Wanye Thomas are very talented guys, and they're both undrafted. So they have a lot of faith in those safeties. So I think that's what it is. I think, Deron Bland's not out there playing conservative at all. So, yeah, you're going to give up some of the big plays.
Well, let's go to the other side of the ball. Is Dak going to go scorched earth this year on a contract year? Do you foresee some massive numbers out of him?
If you look at their running game, they need him to. If they want to win any games
I got questions about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think he will. Dallas, they drive me crazy with this. I think, you've got to make a decision, and they're really bad about dragging their feet. If you're in those shoes, you need to make the decision. Do you want the guy? Do you want Dak? Is he your long-term option? Well, then, get off your ass and sign him. Mm-hmm. If he's not your long-term option, then trade him, because you're going to get, if you can get 3 first-round picks for Deshaun Watson while he's facing a suspension, what are you going to get for Dak Prescott? I know that the media likes to act like he's awful, but I promise you, there's teams out there that would give up a boatload of picks for him. But they're playing with fire right now. With his contract, they can't franchise tag him next year.
Yeah.
So, and then you've seen Trevor Lawrence just got like,
I was about to say that exact
$800 billion. Yeah. So every time somebody signs something, all of a sudden Dak Prescott's contract value goes up and goes up, goes up. That's why if you want the guy, sign him, because it's only going to get worse. But they're going to end up sitting there letting him go in the offseason if they don't figure it out and get absolutely nothing. But yeah, I think he will. I think he's going to go out there, and I think he's going to put up a whole lot of yards. He's he's one of the more underrated quarterbacks, in my opinion. I think people just like to pick on him because he's on the Cowboys. But if you put a guy that was a comp pick in round 4, he has, it'd be insane how much love people would be giving this guy for the coming out of nowhere, overcoming the odds. Same thing with Tony Romo being an undrafted guy, but they act like these guys are just never lived up to the hype when there really wasn't any. But I do think that Dak's going to go out there and he's going to put monster numbers. Don't know, of course, his kryptonite's always been the playoffs. Look what Kirk Cousins got in the open market when that's his same issue. So I think Dak will go out there and put up a whole bunch of numbers. And if the Cowboys don't sign him, somebody's about to give him an ungodly amount of money.
All right. You mentioned it, so let's go ahead and tackle it. Zeke, Rico Dowdle, Royce Freeman, and Deuce Vaughn. What's your expectations?
I think that's going to be the best running back room in the NFL. 3,000 yards maybe? No, I mean – I don't know what they're doing. I am the first guy to say that running back most replaceable position there is, but that doesn't mean you replace them with nothing. I mean, they could have signed somebody in free agency, that was capable. You could have used a 3rd or 4th round pick on somebody. I don't know what their plan was. Jerry Jones made some comment about Ezekiel Elliott was really good in the final 2 games for the Patriots, so obviously he's still a starting back. But I don't know what games he was watching.
Am I wrong for liking Rico Dowdle?
No, I like Rico Dowdle a lot. I do too. The thing, and he's the guy that if that running game is worth a damn, it's going to be him. The question I have with Rico Dowdle, if you look at his career, going even back to South Carolina, he has constantly had to deal with a lot of injuries. So you're putting stock in a guy that hasn't been a feature back. And you're going to kind of say, hey, let's see if he can carry the load for us and hope he doesn't get injured. Because if he doesn't, I mean, you can turn to Deuce Vaughn, Royce Freeman. I mean, Zeke, the positive thing I can say about Zeke is he doesn't lose yards. He's still strong. He's still powerful. So you give him the ball, you're going to get a couple yards each play.
He's good in pass protection, too.
He's excellent in pass protection as long as you don't have him play center. His one snap at center was not good.
I can't believe they brought him back.
Dude,
he never left. He was imprinted in the turf.
it comes up every, like, I don't know, every, like, if when you're just sitting around, you're not thinking about much, but you're just kind of like relaxing everything. And I every once in a while that still pops into my head. Like,
what I love is, like, they drew that up and
yeah,
somebody said, yeah, that's a good idea.
do it.
Greg Newland, who used to write for Dog Pound Daily, and then he started slacking. He used to crack me up because whenever the Browns would do stuff, do some kind of trick play that just, was atrocious and would lose 10 yards or so, he would send me a text and be like, the sad thing is that probably fooled the crap out of our defense. So, so it makes me think about stuff like that when you see these terrible trick plays. I'm like, God, that actually probably worked when they practiced it.
Yeah, which is just scary. I wanted to talk about Tyler Guyton a little bit, like kind of talking about protecting the blind side, the offensive line. I love Cooper Beebe, by the way. I'm very intrigued by that. I don't know if they're going to plan to start him or what. It's funny because is he a guard? Is he a center? Is he a tackle? I don't know what the hell they're going to do with him, but they're moving Guyton over to left tackle. I know there's no pads, there's no real things that you can see from offensive linemen, but are the early returns that he will be the starting left tackle, and are they somewhat confident with that going into the season?
Yeah, and that's one thing I don't think that they get enough credit for, and that they went into the offseason with so many needs, and they just refused to overpay in free agency. And two of their biggest needs were left tackle and center, and Cooper Beebe is going to play center. He's been taking snaps at center. Apparently, they called him the night he got drafted and told him start practicing center. But so they were able to take that first pick, the 24th pick, and turn it into a starting left tackle and a starting center. And if they both even just turn out to be average, I mean, that was just a fantastic move on their part. But the early returns are good. Like you said, it's really hard to tell until they put the pads on. But for Cooper, they're talking about how he is, absorbing the offense. He's knowing the play. He's already making pre-snap adjustments at center, which is going to be the biggest change for him. But his football IQ is really good. Guyton, everyone's praising his athletic ability. So, again, you've got to see it with the pads on. You got to see him going full speed. But, as far as the football IQ and the processing and all that, that part's apparently been going pretty well. And, Zach Thomas has been singing their praises. So if you get him, get his approval, he knows what the hell he's talking about. So,
all right.
Zach Martin, I called him Zach Thomas. He's not a linebacker. It's Zach Martin.
I was
so
not
CeeDee
sure.
Lamb is like the premier skill position player on the team. What's the plan outside of CeeDee Lamb and wide receiver?
Pray. Just pray somebody does something, because I like Brandon Cooks, but he's not a number one wide receiver. He's also in the final year of his contract. After Brandon Cooks is not a whole lot. Jalen Tolbert he seemed like he was a really great pick when they picked him in the third round, but it's kind of like David Bell and Cedric Tillman. You're like, oh yeah, I mean, this was it was a steal. And then you're watching him going, okay, I'm waiting for him to kind of take that step to do something.
Yeah.
Maybe he does that this year. Ryan Flournoy has been turning a lot of heads in camp. People are saying he looks like Des Bryant, which I'm just like, might be a little too early to throw that on a 6th round pick. But, he's a big body guy, a lot of athleticism, played at Southeast Missouri State, so hasn't faced great competition. But that's really it. You don't have, Kevontae Turpin's there, but he's more of a returner and a gadget guy. So, I like Jalen Brooks. He was 7th round pick last year from South Carolina, but he's not ready for a huge role either. He's like, you got these guys that are pretty decent in spots. Can take, 3 or 4 snaps a game, but you just don't have, without CeeDee Lamb, you just don't have much of a threat.
Well, he's a good threat, but if he goes down, they don't have anything behind him.
No, they don't. And, I really do like Jake Ferguson, obviously. He's a fantastic tight end, but he's not somebody that's dynamic and going to stretch the field. So, you're right. If something were to happen to CeeDee Lamb, or if they screw up this negotiation, they're going to be in a lot of trouble.
You invoked the name Des Bryant a minute ago, and when I was doing research for this episode, is this a misprint? Was Martavis Bryant on the team last year?
He was on the team last year, and they brought him back this year. They ended up cutting him, but yeah, he was on the practice squad at the end of the year last year. And
That blew my mind. I'm going to be honest. That blew my mind.
Yeah, I don't remember that. That's
he got signed, and I remember I read the article like 3 times because I was waiting for the gotcha, just kidding. But no, they brought in Martavis Bryant.
All right. Well,
I'm shocked he did not make the active roster ever.
I'm shocked he's not one of these spring.
He actually might this year if they brought him back. He'd have a shot.
There's always a chance. Do you have any more questions about the offense, Jacob, before I move on?
Like Zach Martin's a future Hall of Famer. I like Terrence Steele. But how do you feel about the unit overall, putting all those pieces together, potentially starting 2 rookies? Like, just overall, are you confident in that offensive line? Because, like you said, the running back room, okay. So, the wide receiver's not named Brandon Cooks. The wide receiver's not named CeeDee Lamb. I've seen that in Cleveland before. We've seen that with Baker Mayfield and stuff, and like not a ton of wide receivers, but it looked good because of the offensive line in 2020, for example. Are you confident in that offensive line as a whole, or are you just like, are there too many questions right now?
I think the one, again, I said earlier, they're really good at drafting, but they have put themselves in a position where they just need everything to hit. I think you can have a little bit of confidence in that offensive line. I think, Terrence Steele he struggled last year, but I think, that was his first year back from an ACL tear. I think if they can get him playing at an average level, you have 2 guards that are absolutely fantastic. Tyler Smith is one of the, he's great. He was just voted one of the top 25 players under 25. So I think he's really good.
Chance they slide him out to tackle eventually?
No, I think because he plays so much better at guard, they want to keep him there. And they like TJ Bass, but I think that Zach Martin's talking about retiring, so he may be sliding into guard next year. But now if Tyler Guyton comes in and it's just god awful, they may reconsider moving Tyler Smith out. But I think because he was good at tackle, but when they split him into guard, it was kind of like, okay, this dude
really good
potential All-Pro at this position. So I think they'd like to leave him there. But yeah, it's hard to say that you can feel completely confident until you see what the rookies can do when it actually matters, when the game's actually full speed. So it all hinges on them. If they can be average, I think the offensive line can be really good because they have enough pieces out there, and they got two really good veterans. We've seen Terrence Steele play at a high level, so if you can get him to kind of even come close to that again, I think they can be okay. But they absolutely have to get that offensive line playing well. It could be a pretty rough season.
Is Jerry Jones Skeletor?
I believe so. You had Al Davis was the crypt keeper. So you had him, and now you got Skeletor. But yeah, I believe he might be.
Well, in all seriousness, can you actually, because from the outside, all we see is Jerry Jones on TV, but could you actually, for our fans, explain the power dynamic in the Cowboys front office and how it actually operates?
Yeah, it is funny because even people that pay attention to the team, they still talk about Jerry Jones. He's a general manager. And Jerry Jones is in his 80s. He's not the general manager, and he hasn't been the general manager for over a decade. You talk about from 1989 until 2011 when he was really kind of front and center. They never drafted an offensive lineman in the first round. From 2011 till now, I think they're up to 5 now that they drafted in the first round. You've seen a complete shift in their dynamic. Jerry Jones would go out and sign anybody, a name, and he recognized it and thought you could help win a Super Bowl. He would give you whatever. Dak Prescott would probably have when Patrick Mahomes got the 10-year, $500 million contract, Jerry Jones would have given Dak Prescott a 20-year, $100 billion contract. He's not making the calls, and you can see it. In 2014, he threw a fit and was mad that they didn't draft Johnny Manziel. So it's like, he's the owner, the GM, he's the shot caller, the decision maker.
Instead.
Yeah, I think around then, around 2011 or so, when you started seeing that shift, I think his son kind of sat him down and was like, "Dad, you can still talk, say whatever you want to say, but we got this." And so, Will McClay is, I think his title is like vice president of football personnel. He's the general manager. He's the one that does, the scouting, the drafting. You can see, and like I said, 2011, you can see that shift when he took over. They've started hitting on almost every draft since then. Before that, the draft was an absolute mess. But then when it comes to anything as far as contract structures, salary cap management, Stephen Jones is handling that. And he's got the nickname Cap Boy from the Cowboys fan base because all he cares about is the cap. I've photoshopped before him holding up a jersey that says salary cap space, which is that's his favorite player. That's all he cares about is saving money and getting the cap space. But that's kind of their structure right there. You kind of have Will McClay and Stephen Jones calling the shots, making the plays. And McClay, I think, does a great job. You see, every year he gets someone trying to sign him. The Texans have tried to sign him. I think it was the Raiders that tried to sign him, but somebody's always trying to sign him, and he won't go and take a GM job somewhere else because he doesn't have the title, but he's the GM. Yeah.
Was that who we have to thank for the Amari Cooper trade?
Man, honestly, no. I think that was a Stephen Jones decision. I think Will McClay is mostly involved in the drafting and the scouting. I think he does most of his focus there. But once it comes to the contracts, that's when Stephen gets in there and screws it up. And his issue with Amari Cooper was he made $20 million a year. They didn't like it. And I think they were kind of using that against Dak Prescott because if you listen to some of the stuff that Stephen Jones was saying, he was mad at Prescott for wanting the $40 million a year and basically said over and over, we can't afford anybody because you're going to get a $40 million a year contract. Well, not long after he signs a $40 million a year contract, well, we got to trade your $20 million a year receiver and you get nothing. So it sounds petty and childish, but I think, old rich billionaires can be petty and childish. So, I think Stephen Jones is the one that was responsible for that.
All right. Well, let's land this plane, man. Let's actually talk about the game.
Yeah.
What areas do you think Dallas can exploit in Cleveland? Like what you know more than most these two teams pretty well. So what areas do you think the Cowboys can exploit?
I think their pass rush can really give Cleveland fits. I think you put DeMarcus Lawrence on one side going up against, whether it's Jack Conklin or DeJuan Jones. I think he can give them a hard time because his nickname's Tank for a reason. He's just incredibly powerful. He doesn't put up a lot of sacks, but he's a guy that can just, wear you down physically, and then you bring in the speed rushers after that. And then on the other side, you get Micah Parsons. I think, just think about Jedrick Wills trying to block him.
I don't want that.
Yeah, exactly. And then, so I think, when you let's take Parsons off and let's put, Sam Williams at 260-pounder that runs a 4.4. I think that's the area they can exploit them at is the pass rush. And I think their secondary can, first of all, we got to get the Amari Cooper situation figured out, but I think the secondary can kind of give the receivers a little bit of a fit. But I think the big issue, it's going to come down to whether or not the offensive line can handle those edge rushers.
Okay, well, let's flip it on its head. What areas can the Browns exploit Dallas?
It's kind of the same thing.
I was going to say
what I just said. You just flip it around and you kind of go, we don't know what Tyler Guyton is yet, but we do know that he's just learning left tackle, and his first real matchup's going to be Myles Garrett. I don't, if I'm Dallas, I don't really want to think about that too long. If they're smart, you're going to have a tight end out there to chip them, to do something, and rolling Dak out, So I think it's the same thing. I think that their offensive line dealing with, and Cleveland's got Dallas has got some good pass rushers and whatnot, but Cleveland just has beasts all throughout the defensive line, even, tackle and they're deep. I mean, you can sit there and go down. You can go 4 deep on the edge with Alex Wright and Ogbo coming off the bench. So I think that they can exploit that on Dallas as well.
What's one matchup, not from the lines, what's one matchup skill position wise that you're going to be paying the most attention to?
Probably I want to see Denzel Ward and CeeDee Lamb just going at it. You got two guys that are just at the top of their game, two of the best at what they do. And I think the two of them, that can make or break. If everything else is going and you can slow it down, the pass rush or whatever for Dallas on offense, that's the thing that can make or break it. If CeeDee Lamb can handle Denzel Ward, Ward slows him down and you're having to rely on those other guys, they're going to be in trouble.
I was going to say, assuming that you're correct. I was going to say Amari Cooper and Trevon Diggs would be fun too.
I can see that too. That the one thing that I would say, that'll be a lot of fun to watch. I don't think that would be a make or break kind of thing because let's say Diggs slows Cooper down. You got Jerry Jeudy, you got Elijah Moore. They may not be elite, but you can trust them a whole lot more than you can start trusting. Yes, you can trust Brandon Cooks, but then after that, you don't know. So I think you got a few more questions for Dallas. If your top guy gets shut down with CeeDee Lamb, I think they're in a lot more trouble.
I got a random question because I found it on the internet. I want you guys to play Would You Rather. Are you ready? Casey's like, motherfucker, you're hijacking my show.
No, dude, let's go.
I'm always ready.
I got two quarterbacks for you. We're only doing first 48 starts. All right. So quarterback one, first 48 starts, 12,204 total yards, about 6.7 yards per attempt, 66 total touchdowns, 35 interceptions, 20 fumbles lost, 85.5. All right. Quarterback two, 11,992 yards, 6.7, 64 touchdowns, 33 interceptions, 21 fumbles lost. Which one do you want?
Damn near identical.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You want to know who the first one is?
Hold on. Let me. I'm gonna go with the first one.
He had a few more yards, right?
Yeah.
About 300, 200.
Okay. I was thinking it was more than that. So yeah, they're pretty.
Who did I pick?
You picked Trevor Lawrence, but quarterback B is Daniel Jones.
I'd pick quarterback A.
Yeah.
I agree with Casey.
No, you're right. You're right. But it's kind of funny when you look at some of those numbers put up next to each other and you're like, ooh.
Danny
How much
Dimes.
longer are we going to blame some of Lawrence's shortcomings on Urban Meyer?
Yeah.
Everything that's ever gone wrong in his life is Urban Meyer's fault.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what it is. It's Urban.
What's really super puzzling to me, though, is if you just look at Doug Peterson's first season in Jacksonville, they sucked the first half of the year, came on super strong at the end, finished strong, started strong the following year, and then flipped it on its head and was just ass for the last back half of the season.
We're going to talk about him next week.
I can't know if Peterson's good or not, like as a coach, because sometimes he's fantastic. I mean, he took Philly, he goes and wins a Super Bowl with Philly, and then there was like 2 years he was fired and they were just falling apart. And like you said, at Jacksonville, you don't know what you're going to get. It's like half amazing and half of it's what the hell are they doing? So yeah, I watched Doug Peterson and I'm like, is he good or not? Because sometimes I think he's great and sometimes I'm just not sure.
Well, I'm just happy he's in a place where it makes sense to wear a visor.
Yeah, that's true. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, that was it for me.
Yeah,
Jacksonville's a fit because that visor makes way more sense there than in Philly.
You don't wear a visor in a cold state. That's just stupid.
No, you don't do it.
Yeah.
Do you have any more questions, Jacob?
No.
All right, I got one more. And this is it. It's not about the players or the coaches, but it has something to do with the game. Will Tom Brady suck balls?
Oh.
I think he's going to be good.
He's going to be good.
I mean, I think I'm in the minority here, but I've always thought Tom Brady was funny. Like I like him. You know, I followed him like on social media and everything. I find him humorous. I think, you know, a lot of people go, "Oh, he's so arrogant" or whatever. I'm like, every freaking person in the NFL is arrogant. There's no way in hell they got this good at what they do. They're lining up against somebody who's the elite, and they're going, "I'm better than you." But they all have a bit of arrogance to them.
Many wins, that many Super Bowl trophies, all the records, and being humble, because I can't.
Oh, like, you know, some people talk about, you know, these players do this or whatever. You know, Baker Mayfield's a good one. They talk about how immature he is. If I was Baker Mayfield's age and had the stardom that he had and that money, I would have been dead or in prison. Like, come on, man. You know, these guys, we're way too hard on them sometimes. Yeah. You know, like,
yeah,
give him a little bit of a break. Yeah,
I do. I think he's going to be good. I think
Do you think it's going to be a Tony Romo thing, though, where he's good at first?
I was going to say that. I was going to say, could he go out there and because remember Romo that first, those 2 years or whatever it was, is he was charismatic. He was guessing plays. He was drawing shit up. It was brilliant. And then all of a sudden he got a little too cocky because he was actually better at that than he was at football, which was weird. It
kind of resembled his NFL career because when he first started, you were like, man, this guy's really good. He's making plays on the run. He's doing all this stuff. And then he got paid and got cocky. And it was like, man, this guy kind of went downhill. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, I remember one time he broke down a play of a cat that ran out into the field and was talking about its 40 cuts it was making. It was fantastic. But I don't think that Brady, though, will be like that. I don't think Brady's going to be the, Romo's like ADHD bouncing all over the place. Hey, Jim, let me, I don't think you're going to get that with Brady, but I do think you're going to get the sarcastic comment here or there. I think he'll be good. Maybe I'm wrong, but we'll find out.
I think he's fake.
Ooh.
I just think he's a fake person. He's going to say whatever he thinks he's supposed to say, as opposed to being real.
You know how upsetting that would be, because that's why I like him, is because the stuff that he says sometimes just makes me laugh. And
his personality was unveiled when he went to Tampa Bay.
Yeah, and that's when I saw that. You can see that he was a little bit charismatic, could be funny. Hopefully he's that, and not like you. Hope he doesn't come out and act fake. That would be annoying.
All right. Well,
Randy, I can't thank you enough, man. This is awesome.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Always fun to be on here.
Well, we'll be back on Tuesday. We'll be back on the offensive side of the ball. I don't know, maybe tight ends. We'll talk about some tight ends. Let's do that.
You guys are always talking about tight ends.
Well, you're always talking about meat.
I'm a meat connoisseur.
You know what? That's A-okay with the guys on this here podcast.
Right.
Guys, thank you so much. Subscribe, thumbs up. We love you. Thanks for giving some of your time to us again this week. We'll see you guys again on Tuesday. Talk about some tight ends. I may have a draft show come out this weekend. I'm not really sure. We'll see how that kind of works out, and we'll see from there. So we love you guys. We'll see you next time. As always, go Browns.